welcome Commissioner Burke. And would you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Katie, roll call.
All right. Commissioner Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Doris let us know that he couldn't be attending. Chair Halley.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kine.
Here.
Commissioner Mobley.
Here.
And Commissioner Burke.
Here.
Hey, could I have a motion for approval of minutes from January 9th, 2024?
I make a motion to adopt the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to open oral comments from the public.
Motion to close.
Second.
Okay, on to our business. We're going to have a Mill District specific plan presentation.
I don't know if you want me to introduce. These are our consultants.
Yes,
from
I'm
Plan
sorry.
West. It's okay. I think Merritt was going to. It looks like he's logged in. This is Vanessa and John, our consultants, our planning consultants from Plan West. They've been working with us for a couple of years now, I think, on this project. Working on the environmental documents, on working with the new developer on his plans and making those conform with our plans, and a lot.
Great, thanks, Katie. I'm Vanessa Blodgett with Plan West Partners, and I have with me John Miller. We're both principal planners there, and like Katie said, we have been working with the city on this and some other multifamily and zoning-related projects over the past few years. So we're happy to be here tonight. Thanks for joining us, and we are going to give just an update of where we are on the Mill District specific plan, including some background, how we got to where we are, and then next steps. So I'm going to try to share my screen so you can see the presentation. And let's see. Which one is it? And what I'm going to do. There we go. From the beginning. Perfect. Well, can you guys see that though? Yes. Over. Okay. On your individual things. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. So I will get going. So for our presentation, we are just going to give a brief overview of the Palco mill site history and the impetus for the specific plan. A summary of the general plan, which had a mill district focus area, and provide an overview about what a specific plan is and the proposed parts of the specific plan and what will be coming before you in the coming months, and including describing some of the proposed general plan and zoning updates, what the Planning Commission's role is, and then next steps. So a brief site history. It was an important local economic engine. The mill was open from the 70s to the early 2000s, and it closed in 2004. The city recognized that the area represents an exceptional potential for developers in the city and local businesses, and the former City of Fortuna redevelopment agency included the Palco mill site, and the city was planning to leverage redevelopment funds to improve the site until those were no longer available. In 2003, a private developer did propose some large scale retail development, including big box stores at the mill site. And this was one of the things that triggered the last general plan update and an overall desire for site planning by the city as a whole. The city initiated a comprehensive general plan update in September of 2005, and the Mill District was an important focus area of the general plan update. Early policy proposals included the desire for an area plan to be prepared to include precise policy that would guide development of the site with specific guidelines and standards. There was an administrative draft Mill District area plan that was prepared in 2008 as part of the general plan update. And the area that covered is shown on the map on the right-hand side of the screen. Draft goals and policies at that time included a mix of employment, shopping, and residential uses, mixed use areas that provided some pedestrian-oriented development and access to transit, connectivity to the rest of the city. So this was in 2008 at the time what the guiding policies were. But what ended up happening is this draft area plan was prepared and evaluated in the general plan EIR, but it was not actually adopted as part of the city's general plan at that time. And what did happen though is the Mill District focus area was mapped, and the Mill District land use designation was part of the general plan update, so that was adopted as part of the land use element, and there are some existing land use element policies that have been guiding the Mill District land uses, and including retail services and restaurants and professional and admin services and residential uses on the site. The current land use, the Mill District land use designation, the MD designation, allows for residential density from 7 to 29 units per acre. And it also has policies to carry out other parts of the general plan to ensure compatible uses, promote community activities, preserve the floodplain, and provide for a safe and convenient street system and balanced transportation. So these maps show the current land use and zoning. So as I was just describing, on the left-hand side is the current land use, general plan land use map, and a majority of that area is the MD, Mill District designation. Along South Fortuna Boulevard is the corridor mixed use. And then kind of across the railroad corridor is industrial, the Sequoia gas property right now. And the zoning, so right now, what's shown on this map, the zoning is on the right-hand side, and it is not consistent with the land use. So the heavy industrial M2 zoning allows for heavy industrial, intense land uses, as opposed to the Mill District, which allows for some more mixed use and lower intensity uses. And this is the current, what's the current situation in the city's plans right now. And there is the existing multifamily zoning, which is a majority single-family neighborhood right now, up in the upper right-hand corner, and the commercial thoroughfare zoning along South Fortuna Boulevard. So the current planning process that we have been working with the city on for the past couple of years was initiated by the city before the current landowner purchased the property. So we have been working with the city, and it is a good opportunity for the city to just think about overall infrastructure planning for the site and how it connects to the rest of the city. And it encourages the public process, and then it does also look at potential funding needs for any infrastructure improvements. The funding is coming from a few different sources. So the initial funding was from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, their local early action grant funding program. And then it has been supplemented by the Headwaters funding to assist with some special studies, including we are currently working with GHD, the engineering firm, and they are preparing conceptual utility and infrastructure plans for water and wastewater, stormwater, traffic, and then we will use those to move forward the environmental CEQA documentation. And then funding has also been supplemented by the new property owner in the city to support some additional floodplain and drainage analysis, and incorporate that into the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act document as well. So what is a specific plan? A specific plan is a regulated California planning document that's adopted by a local jurisdiction to implement a particular vision for a defined area in the city. These types of plans are generally used in areas marked for redevelopment and include guidelines, goals, policies, and implementation strategies to guide public and private investment in a coordinated manner. The specific plan must include a number of things, including land use policies and maps regarding distribution, location, and extent of the land uses, development standards, the location and components of needed public and private infrastructure improvements, and then implementing actions, which include financing programs necessary to carry out the plan. And to date, there has been some outreach, including most significantly outreach with both the property owners and then surrounding property owners. So the city, we did worked with the city and had a stakeholder meeting with property owners in 2022, and then we have continued to work with the current property owner and the city as things are developing and moving forward. The city has also presented to the Chamber of Commerce and other regional economic development partners and other civic groups. We've also coordinated with PG&E about the site and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, because Strong's Creek does go right through the southern portion of the site. And this is where I'm going to hand it over to John, I think.
Okay.
So I think you need.
As Vanessa said, the mill site was originally owned by Pacific Lumber. Pacific Lumber went bankrupt in 2006, and ultimately the town of Scotia LLC was the landowner up until 2023, when it was sold to a new landowner who seeks to focus development on primarily industrial projects and spaces for flexible commercial uses, and seeks for development to be allowed within the 100-year floodplain. The current focus area policy calls for no development other than open space related uses within the 100-year floodplain. About 22 acres of the site is 100-year floodplain. The developers motivated to work with the city, and a lot of the developers' objectives align with the reasons that the city initiated the specific planning process in 2021. The developers motivated to work with the city on design guidelines and buffer areas that are focused on neighborhood compatibility. It is a historic mill site that was adjacent to residential uses. The mill has not been operating for 20 years, and so making sure that the future development is compatible or is sited and designed in a way to be compatible. And the developers focused on expanding protections from Strong's and protections for Strong's and Mill Creek. Let's see. Okay. So what's shown on the screen is the development concept that was provided by the landowner. This isn't saying exactly what the what the developer intends to build. This is what they think that the market may demand. This, you'll see a mix of square footages, those are summed from the callouts that are on this map. So it's a little over 750,000 square feet. And the bullet at the top is saying that the proposed development concept may exceed the general plan industrial and commercial use caps. In the land use element, there are caps for areas or for land use designations for industrial uses and for commercial uses, and we'll go into that in a little more detail later, but just wanted to, so this is how they see the land being used. This is what we'll be evaluating as part of our project. So as we've sort of been highlighting, there's gonna need to be some general plan changes in order for this to occur. There's a grouping of policies under goal LU 14, which is the Mill District focus area. And those changes first and foremost would be to allow a range of industrial uses. Currently, only compatible industrial uses or compatible light industrial uses are allowed. It's not really defined what those are, but so this project will open up the range of allowable industrial uses. The city has recognized a need for industrial space. This change wasn't prompted by the developer only. The site's been used for industrial purposes, and the site conditions, the soil contamination in some areas limits the allowable uses. In fact, industrial is the only use that's allowed by the deed covenants, unless comprehensive site mitigation occurs. So first and foremost, allow for industrial uses. Second, to allow development within the 100-year floodplain. And you can see from this aerial image, the blue area is the 100-year floodplain, and this is a recently defined 100-year floodplain by GHD as part of this planning process. So it really accurately depicts the 100-year floodplain. You can see a lot of buildings that are underneath that overlay. So that general plan allows development within the 100-year floodplain, and the city's flood hazard regulations define how development can occur within the 100-year floodplain. So it's very common. The focus area policy calls for the 100-year floodplain within the Mill District focus area being used for open space recreation trail. The city feels that there may be more appropriate places within the city to develop those uses. And the city feels that the former mill site is really, it's a unique site. It's a large site that could accommodate all sorts of development. And so being able to utilize the floodplain to appropriately use the floodplain for development is an appropriate thing. The next image shows the conceptual site plan. Underneath the floodplain, you'll see a number of buildings on the north side of Strongs Creek and a number of buildings on the south side of Strongs Creek. So this is just identifying that the developer and the city feel it's appropriate. To the west, over by the River Lodge, you'll see an area outlined in yellow. The city is negotiating with the landowner to acquire this land. It's right adjacent to the trailhead and parking lot, and the city feels like this would be an appropriate place to provide the open space that may have been intended for the mill site area. The next change is incorporating the planned roundabouts into the Mill District area, to the Mill District focus area planning. The 12th Street roundabout will require land from the Mill District in order to be sited, and the southern roundabouts on Kenmore probably may not require any additional land from the mill district, but it will be, that will provide for the direct access to the site. The next change, this doesn't necessarily result in general plan changes, but there are the Sequoia Gas site in the northeast is going to be affected by the roundabout, and the property owner is looking to possibly further develop the site, and planning for that site in tandem with the mill district makes sense. It may require access from the mill district. There's 2 vacant or underutilized parcels owned by the DeMello and Mora families that are planned and zoned for multifamily, and their development potential is limited by storm drainage. And in fact, there's a Q zone that requires that a use permit be approved that addresses storm drainage, and planning for that storm drainage as part of the mill district planning makes a lot of sense. And then Went Construction owns a portion of the old mill district that is appropriate, should be appropriately, further development should be planned for as part of this process. The last general plan changes will be to amend the land use map to more apply the mill district land use designation in a more focused manner, and to modify the industrial and commercial square footage caps. The next slide is a very busy one, and it's showing the policies. LU 6.6 and 7.4 are the targeted commercial use levels and targeted industrial use levels, and the impetus for these, and there are implementation measures associated with each, LU 8 and LU 9, which specifically identify the commercial square footage that can occur within specific land use designations, and the industrial square footage that can occur within areas of the city, or at this time, Riverwalk wasn't fully within the city, and the Ronaville Airport area wasn't it wasn't within the city, still is not within the city. So the commercial and industrial square footage were capped and focused into specific areas. And the impetus for this was concern regarding urban decay, that it could occur within, actually the EIR didn't suggest that it would likely occur within the city. It said it could occur elsewhere within the county because the market area for these uses is countywide. And we found that these conclusions aren't well supported. The county has thousands of acres of land planned for industrial use, and it has thousands of acres land planned for commercial use. The county general plan doesn't suggest that the presence of this land planned for those uses will result in urban decay effects. The city of Eureka also has land planned for both. The intent, there is a good intent to, but the policies and the caps themselves don't monitor whether or not urban decay is occurring. In the event that it is occurring, they don't identify ways to address it. So rather than just have what are essentially arbitrary caps, we're suggesting that the caps be replaced with a program that has annual monitoring of commercial and industrial development, and that and also monitoring for signs of urban decay, and these be reported to the Planning Commission as part of the general plan annual report. And in the event that the city feels that negative impacts are occurring, to identify programs to address those impacts. Which could be further caps, but do it in a really focused manner rather than what are essentially arbitrary caps. Some draft goals for the specific plan have been prepared, and they're summarized here, facilitating the range of development, strengthening the city's economic base and the base of the surrounding area, and balancing jobs and housing within the city, facilitating the infrastructure improvements necessary for the project, including the John Campbell Memorial Trail, and assuring high-quality design and environmental protections. The proposed policies track closely, in particular relating to Strong's and Milk Creek, and this is actually is parallel to a policy, a change to a policy within the Mill District focus area. Rather than prohibiting development within the 100-year floodplain, the Mill District focus area would expand the riparian buffer areas, essentially doubling and in some cases tripling the buffers that are currently in the general plan. So 100-foot buffers around Strong's Creek and 75-foot buffers around Mill Creek. And within those buffers, the John Campbell, the Strong's Creek Trail could be accommodated. So, continuing with streets that accommodate all users, but given that industrial uses are going to be a focus, also accommodating large trucks, and ensuring that the infrastructure improvements are timed to support development. This is a zoom in on the left of the conceptual site layout from the property owner with a range of commercial uses in the far north, some set back from Newburgh, larger industrial spaces in the center of the north, and as you get down closer to Hot Brew, where the new road, Eel River Road, as it's called on maps, there's also retail and flexible commercial uses towards South Fortuna Boulevard. On the south side, I guess on the north side of Strong's Creek, more flexible industrial uses would be in that lower area adjacent to the creek, and then freeway commercial uses on adjacent to Kenmar, which could include hotel, could include automobile-related retail uses. The specific plan would include design guidelines that would be discretionary, and who the approving body is would be defined through the planning process. It could be the planning commission, like design review currently goes to the planning commission, or it could be more at a staff level in order to allow development to occur more quickly. But the design standards will track with the neighborhood and commercial design policies of the general plan, seeking attractive facades facing public streets, siting and designing the building to avoid noise-generating uses adjacent to residential areas, comprehensive landscape planning. The developers proposed this street edge zone that, so there's high-quality landscaping adjacent to the street, and that provides an attractive view of the site from 101, and buffer areas, earth berms, other measures to limit impacts on adjacent residential uses, and it's comprehensive guidelines relating to the frontage design, parking lots, and for both public safety and for appearance. GHD has been doing comprehensive infrastructure planning. These are their infrastructure layouts. The one on the left is for the site serving water infrastructure and how it would connect to the existing city system based on their analysis and the development scenario provided by the property owner, there wouldn't be a need for improvements to the city water system outside of the Mill District focus area or the specific plan area. On the right is the sewer system, and this would connect to the city system via gravity flow in the north and pressure to the city's lift station on South Fortuna Boulevard, and the sewer interceptor on Lonnie Drive that takes wastewater from this general area to the wastewater treatment plant would need to be upsized. So the property owner would need to participate in funding for that upgrade. On the left is a very busy map showing circulation improvements. So it's showing the roundabouts in relation to the site, and the 12th Street roundabout involves land on the site. So the developer is going to need to dedicate land to the city for that purpose. You'll also see the Eel River Road, which connects to Newburgh, east of the 12th Street roundabout, and connects to South Fortuna Boulevard at the Redwood Village Shopping Center entrance south of McDonald's. And the developer would be responsible for constructing intersections there likely with traffic signals or other stop control that meet city standards. It also shows the Strongs Creek Trail crossing the creek and going along the riparian area on its way to the Riverwalk area, and the developer would be responsible for dedicating the right-of-way for that. On the right-hand side is showing the drainage areas, and the two yellow outlines are for the Mora and DeMello properties, indicating that these areas are limited by drainage capacity within the existing street, and so the drainage facilities within what the property owner refers to as the Fortuna Mill Commerce Center would need to accommodate the stormwater flows from those at maximum development. Here's an image of the conceptual image of the 12th Street interchange, and the Newburgh leg is going across the mill site property. Here's the conceptual image of the Kenmar interchange, and it doesn't, the location of that doesn't really affect the Mill District property, but planning for their driveway or for their access road will be an essential part of the roundabout planning process. The interchange improvements are necessary for the build out of this project, so this project will be responsible for a proportionate share of those improvements. Specific plan implementation occurs through the development of performance standards, the performance standards necessary that have sufficient detail to identify what improvements are required and how they will be carried out, and what protections are required for biological and cultural resources or the floodplain drainage. And the topics are listed below: infrastructure, circulation, public safety, ensuring that performance standards to ensure that the fire department has appropriate access, and there may be the need for the existing bridge that crosses Strongs Creek to be available to them as an emergency access or egress. The zoning map amendments are going to be part of the implementation, and the city has an overlay zone category called a Q qualified zone, and that'll be used to specify the allowable uses, the lot standards, and to incorporate some of the special requirements for to implement the mill district. So a combination of the Q qualified zone and the specific plan document itself will be used to assure that development's consistent with the general plan and the specific plan. The specific plan is also going to include an infrastructure financing component. It may not have all of the answers at the, when the specific plan is approved, but the answers that aren't yet identified will be clarified through performance standards, which will provide the breadcrumbs to define the cost, allocate the cost to the mill district or the other future development within the city. And it'll list out all of the improvements that are required and allocate the proportionate share. So I'm gonna pass it along.
We're almost done, so. And then we're looking forward to the Planning Commission's role, which is also the forum for public review and comment. So this is kind of, we've been working with city staff for a while, but this is kind of the initial public presentation for this information. So we're looking forward to continuing to get Planning Commission input and public input throughout the process. And so the Planning Commission will be asked to consider and review the draft documents and provide staff direction, and review and consider the CEQA document, which at this point we're looking at doing a supplemental EIR that will tier off the existing general plan EIR. So it will be looking at just changes in the mill district specifically, basically, for that environmental review based on a lot of the special studies and infrastructure analysis and stuff that's being done currently. The Planning Commission will be then asked to consider and make findings of general plan consistency, and then make a recommendation to the City Council for the specific plan, the amendments to the general plan and zoning, and then also the associated kind of performance standards and updates that are part of the package. And then this is our last slide, just going over next steps. So we are wrapping up the infrastructure planning right now, which we will be using as a basis for the environmental review. And we are working on the CEQA document, and that will have a 45-day public review period as well. The CEQA document will accept public comments on that, respond to comments, prepare the final document, and that will come back to the Planning Commission and then be asked to be recommended to City Council for adoption. And we're looking at getting the draft CEQA document out in the next 3 to 6 months. And then throughout that time, we will likely come back to you at least once during that time. And then after that, do the public hearings for adoption to the council. And with that, we are happy to answer questions and take initial feedback. And thank you.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. That was a lot of information. I, for one, am so excited that area is going to be, built and nice and not, it's going to be like a new little town in our city. So I'm very excited for that. Did I hear that the area is 22 acres, or is that wrong?
The floodplain area?
Yeah.
Yeah, the floodplain is 22 acres of the 75-acre property owned that the developer owns.
Okay, thank you. And I thought I had one more question, but I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners for questions, comments, and concerns.
First question, who is the new owner?
I think that the name on the property is something like Fishhook Enterprises. They refer to the site as the Fortuna Mill Commerce Center, and I'm struggling with his last name. Katie?
Rizzo.
Vince Rizzo, and he is I think he's an experienced developer out of Sonoma County.
Is it LLC or a sole owner? What kind of
I don't know.
organization is it? You don't know?
He may be in this meeting and may be available.
I'm not
to-
seeing him as
Okay.
a
And
participant.
it's not real important, I just heard the new owner, and thought I'd ask who it was.
Mr. Rizzo presented to the Fortuna Chamber of Commerce a few months ago, and I think that he has put out a marketing brochure on the property, and Katie may be able to provide that to the planning commission.
Yeah, I can send that out to you. I know he's also working with a local real estate company as well. too.
That's
So
true.
there's-
So with the economics of the county at the moment, so we're seeing this with a lot of storefronts closing. Southern Humboldt is just going down. Got to see a lot of storefronts closed. What makes us think that we're not going to have a bunch of pretty buildings that we're going to all fit the cost for?
My understanding is that the developer is more oriented towards build to suit rather than building speculatively. That's my understanding. I don't know if, Katie, do you know more about that?
That does seem to be his business model, and he's also looking more towards the light industrial type businesses, so he wouldn't be, building storefronts or retail or office buildings, more towards building types that we really can't get enough of, the small shops and things like that. I know that Wayne has mentioned that, they've rented out every unit they can, and that there's a lot of demand for, not necessarily artisans, but, the other light industrial, mechanic shops, that sort of thing. If we build it, they will come. There is room within the specific plan itself and within his site plan for retail and other things, as a mix in there, but it seems like what he's gearing towards, there's quite a bit of demand for right now, so it wouldn't be, a trinket shop or something like that, although, once we get some more economic development going, we may find that those fill up again.
It appeared that it was largely warehouse.
Yeah, and there's a pretty big demand for that, and those are activities that we don't necessarily want in our other commercial areas. We want those, in an area that's not really visible from, the boulevard or from 101 or from Main Street. So, those are good things that there has been demand for. The public, has reached out to the city, looking for places to put those things.
And as it was shown to us today, there is no housing involved in this project.
There is no, he is not planning for housing. There is areas, I believe, along the eastern side that would allow for some housing, that are currently zoned in the district itself, maybe not necessarily, as part of this developer's plan.
It will remain an allowable use.
Yeah.
So even though the current concept doesn't necessarily mark it out on a map, it's an allowable use. And then there is the Mora property that's adjacent to the existing residential use is part of our planning effort. So that is housing that is, within the Mill District.
So we need to get a hard copy of this presentation.
I think we could do that.
Because it was, frankly, you did a great job with an overwhelming amount of information. And, I could go back and spend 6 hours reading everything that I just heard come out of your mouth, and I still probably wouldn't understand it all, but I would understand it a lot better.
Yeah, we're happy to provide that.
Thanks.
I had just a quick question. The
Dan, this is the first time I've seen this project, and I enjoyed your presentation. I'm kind of in the same boat. That's a lot to take in, but I just saw that there was a triangle of open space, and you mentioned that it's gonna go over to the existing trail. Was there any open space in the development area, or has that all been shifted?
The current general plan calls for the entire 100-year floodplain. So the portion of the site that's covered in light blue calls for all of that being open space. And it intended for it to be public open space, and that the Strongs Creek Trail would be located within that area as well. I think that there's agreement, at least at the city staff level, with the developer that this may not be the best place to provide open space for the city. And so that triangle area, which is over adjacent to Riverwalk and right adjacent to the levee that contains the trail, is a better place, and it's more focused with the city's trail system, the conference center. That's a more appropriate place for it. It's not something that the developer wants to provide.
And there will,
So I take it they want to pay to buy that other piece of land.
It's my understanding the city is negotiating to purchase the land right now.
and there still will be connectivity in terms of trail from within the railroad corridor with the Great Redwood Trail planning and the Strongs Creek Trail to connect inland, so.
So you have the riparian strips alongside
Yeah.
the creeks, and then you have a trail that will be a footpath, I imagine, that would be going through the property.
I think it's going to be a Class 1 multi-use trail, so it'll likely be a paved trail for bikes and for people walking, and it will connect at more than one point to the Great Redwood Trail.
With the property going both on Newburgh Road and on the southern side, the Kenmar Road, and then that small portion where they'd have to do the intersection across from the Burger King and McDonald's, would the developer be required to add sidewalks or anything along those lines? Because right now there are no sidewalks on any of those adjacent sections, and I for one utilize that space a lot, whether biking or walking. So I just wanted to see if they would be required to do that. I know there's a lot of private property on the eastern side that probably wouldn't be required to do, but anywhere where it might be touching
I
the
think
roadway.
that as far as Newburgh, the frontage along Newburgh on the east side of the roundabout around there, the new intersection along their property, they would be responsible for, I think it calls for a bike lane, sidewalk, streetlights, public utility easement. So they would be completing Newburgh adjacent to their property and constructing the intersection. They'll be doing the intersection at South Fortuna Boulevard. That I don't think that there's much frontage that the property owner has on South Fortuna Boulevard.
No, it would only be the Eel River Road that you had mentioned. Would be the
Yes.
only spot that I can recognize.
The Kenmar,
But it's the
Yes.
Kenmar side
There's
that I would
Kenmar
be
frontage.
more, yeah.
And we've been talking with city staff because the property goes to almost the intersection with South Fortuna Boulevard, Ross Hill. And I don't think that the city is going to be requiring them to do frontage, or they haven't defined frontage improvements that are on the street side of Mill Creek, because there's the Mill Creek area.
But it's my understanding that the new Eel River Road will have sidewalk.
Yeah, that I would imagine, yeah.
yeah, that'll be a comprehensive
Yep.
intersection
Yeah.
with the roundabout and the bike
And the whole street going from Newburgh to South Fortuna Boulevard will have two travel lanes that will be designed to accommodate large trucks. It'll have sidewalks. It may have a combined, it'll have connections to the Great Redwood Trail for folks walking or biking to work. And it will have bike facilities, appropriate bike facilities that will complement the Great Redwood Trail as well, and crosswalks.
Will there be a difference between that Newburgh traffic intersection and the Kenmore roundabout system? Are they both going to be capable of handling large, long trucks coming in and out?
The roundabouts?
Yeah.
I think the roundabouts are going to be designed for large trucks.
Okay. So we will have traffic in and out of that project from both ends?
Yeah, I think that the south end is going to be focused towards, the south end of the site is going to be focused towards more freeway commercial, similar to the city's freeway commercial zone. So it wouldn't, I mean, there would be delivery trucks, but it's not, I don't think it's intended to be the transportation-related, warehouse, industrial-oriented like they imagine will occur on the northern side.
More on the north end.
John, or I can jump into, this is Merritt, the city manager, and I can talk a little bit more about the interchange projects if you want to hear about those. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so the interchanges, they've been reviewed by Caltrans. They would be designed for STAA trucks, which are the extra long trucks that currently can't even make it to Humboldt County. And so Caltrans is reviewing those designs for the future eventuality of those STAA trucks being there. So there's not going to be a limitation on what the roundabouts can deliver as far as trucks. And one interesting thing to note, even though you can't really see it on this picture, but the driveway that goes to the mill site from Kenmar will have to be shifted slightly towards South Fortuna Boulevard so that it can be spaced out a little bit further away from the roundabout. This is an earlier concept, and that connection to that driveway ultimately would have to be designed and put in conjunction with the roundabout project, but will likely be done by the developer sooner than the roundabout is constructed.
Thank you, Merritt. Any other comments, questions?
Commissioner Halley, if I could just add, I really appreciate John and Vanessa and Katie for making the presentation. I had to be out of town on family business, but our hope today was to be able to give you an overview of the project before we come to you for a decision, so you could have time to think about it and really kind of get your mind about it around it before we come back and we're asking for things. So we'll probably have a series of meetings in the future, and as the public starts to see this concept, people have the ability to weigh in, and our thought is to have the Planning Commission be the venue for those decisions. And then, as Vanessa showed on the last slide, ultimately making those recommendations for zoning, for land use, for environmental documentation, to go through this body and then be recommended to the City Council for approval. So the hard work is anticipated to be done by this commission, and for this to be the public venue. And if there's any thoughts that planning commissioners have about, that process, then that's something else we'd be interested in hearing about.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready to move on?
I think so.
I really appreciate you guys, and I'm glad that I'm happy. This is exciting for me, and I love to be a part of it. So if there's nothing more on the business, the Mill District, yes, we are going to go on to Planning Commission Staff Communication Report with Katie.
I attached the end of the year report, our Community Development Department report. We used to send that to the Planning Commission every so often, just so you guys can kind of get an idea. I know most of you probably read the City Council agenda packets as well. But this one's always a fun one. It's got the end of the year building permit totals, just to see where we're at. From what I understand, we have gone up again in construction value. We did go down a bit in permit fees, and I think a part of that was due to the fact that we had a few accessory dwelling units that were constructed, and we're not allowed to charge capital connection fees for those. So if those were a regular single-family residence, the building permit fees would have been higher for those, but because of the way the ordinance is, we don't collect the same number of fees for that. And then just to give you guys a little insight into what's going on in the department. Our new director will be starting on Monday, so that'll be exciting. So our next meeting, we will have her here with us. And I'm excited to have
Help.
help. Yes, yes. Did you guys have any questions about the report, or any questions about things going on in the city?
I heard something about the Fortuna Theater. Is that going to go anywhere?
I believe that it is. I haven't been directly involved. Merritt.
Merritt.
I can talk about that, Katie, if you'd like. And
Yes, Merritt.
I will just say that there's interest from a buyer who's familiar with the operation of the theater. And so it's a really big project and an expensive property for somebody to take on as a business. But what we've been doing is trying to help the property owner by helping him coordinate with contractors to understand the work that's needed to the property. There was a lot of water damage to that when a sprinkler system broke during the earthquake. So there's some cost to figure out there. And then we've been trying to connect him with resources for business planning, and then also low interest loans and different other sources of business support in the county. But one of these things that the city has that we can do is provide a low interest loan if he decides to proceed. But we've also been connecting him with commercial real estate brokers who are really good at analyzing properties, revenue generation, and what the value of a property is based on the revenue generation. So really providing resources, being a potential lender at a below market lending rate with business loan funds, and trying to support that. From a staff perspective, and what we've heard from the community is that people think that a movie theater is a very important part of the community and don't want to lose those type of amenities that make Fortuna more self-functioning than a bedroom community to another city. And so we're supporting that, but the city won't be directly involved in owning or operating the theater.
Thank you. I think that's good news, though. It might go forward.
It's exciting, and it's a beautiful theater to go in and see that it has the biggest movie screen in the county, and just the kind of the beautiful main theater. It would be wonderful to see them proceed with that.
Absolutely.
We're all just talking about it.
Yeah, it adds so much to our town, our city. Okay. Anything else?
Motion to close.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will adjourn at 6:59.